Hey there, it's Jose, and in today's video I will be doing a watercolor self-portrait. Alright, so starting with the video, I'm going to be putting down some base tones and some flat colors. Now, I did some sketching. I also went through and I added some masking fluid, some watercolor masking fluid to this, but I cut it out because you really can't see much of what I did then. It's just, you just are seeing my hand moving over the paper. But right now I'm going again, very similar to the to the color pencil self-portrait I did, where I wanted to have a lot of bright colors. I took some pictures that I liked that I'm using for this as reference. So some of the colors are going to be very bright and very eye-catching, at least I hope so. This is something new for me. Normally when I do watercolors, I do either landscapes or things like that, or something that's a little bit more stylized. So I'm going a little bit out of my comfort zone when it comes down to this self-portrait and going through and trying to do the whole thing out of watercolor. So as you can see, I'm just kind of putting some color down, kind of getting some areas covered up with the different colors, and kind of give myself a guideline of what areas are toned with the bright lights and what areas are more regular skin tones. So around here I went through and I let it all dry for about half an hour or so before I went going back in, and then I started working on adding some details. Now, something about watercolors that I've learned over the years, and if you've seen my tips for watercolor painting, is going through and working from light to dark. And also I like to go in and I like to sketch everything out using watercolor pencils, because it allows me to not have very dark, clear lead pencil lines all over the drawing. And using watercolor pencils, it kind of dissolves in the drawing itself, so you are able to have guidelines that are no longer very clear in the finished product. Something I did kind of struggle a little bit was how to go from a very bright color to a very dull, darker color, as you can see around the left arm and on my chest area. I kind of struggle a little bit with that, just because I'm so used to doing some cartoony stuff with watercolors. I don't usually do a lot of shading or darker colors that are kind of blended and kind of fading in and out. But it was a fun experience overall. I do have to say, I do feel like this being a watercolor painting, it was a little bit less accurate than what the color pencil self-portrait was, just simply because of the fact that you do have a lot less control over what you're doing with watercolor compared to some dry mediums like color pencils. So again, when you're doing something a little bit more stylized or landscapes, it's a lot more forgiving if you're not very precise. So with this, it was a little bit difficult trying to get used to what the brush was loaded with, how much color, how much water was in it. As I'm going through and adding some of the facial hair and some of the body hair, I did struggle quite a bit just having the correct amount of paint versus water on the paintbrush. There were plenty of times where it was too watery and too blotchy, and there were times where it didn't have enough, so the brush wasn't actually painting. With each brush stroke, it will just kind of have a very like dry texture to it. So that was definitely something I haven't experienced before. Again, it's just simply just because I'm used to doing something completely different when it comes down to watercolor painting. Now I had longer hair then, so I ended up wetting my hair to kind of incorporate the wetness of the skin and the hair into any art piece that I created out of this. So here I'm going through and I'm removing the masking medium. I went ahead and I added it throughout the skin and hair and the eyes on the areas that I wanted to have a very high white segment, so it shows shininess from being wet, and also because I wanted to be able to keep the whites of the eyes very crisp and clear, so I can go back in and then add the shade into it separately from the rest. So as you can see right here, now we're kind of more on a real-time video, and I'm going through just adding some of the details, making sure that the shape of the eyes are more precise or more round, and just adding some details on the hair. Overall, I am pretty happy with the way it came out. I do feel, again, like I said earlier in the video, it's a little bit less precise than the portrait I did using watercolor pencils. I mean color pencils, not watercolors. Especially on the face, I do feel like it's less precise, it's less clear. At this point, I'm kind of taking a step back and trying to see what other details can be added, and also, as you can see on the left arm, you still have those really bright colors, and then it kind of goes from the bright colors over to the right shoulder, and it's having more natural skin tones to it. So again, I just kind of wanted to, most of my videos, the whole process is time-lapse and sped through, but for this one I wanted to slow it down a little bit and kind of show you more of a real time of what my process is. Now in this area right now that I'm doing something that I've learned over the years, when I was younger and I started doing art and doing portraits and people and eyes, one of the things that I felt always kind of gave my artwork very like deer in the headlights, like crazy psychotic eyes, was the fact that I never added any shading or any coloration to the actual white of the eyes, because I felt that it didn't look right. But what didn't look right was the fact that we do have shading. The white of the eyes aren't all fully white. There is some gradients. The upper lid will cast a shadow on your actual eyes, and also it's going to reflect your eyelashes. It's going to catch your eyes the light a little bit differently. So like I said, I used masking fluid on those areas just so that I was able to go in there with more precision and a smaller brush with finer detail. And again, being that this is not something I regularly do, using watercolors to create a portrait, I wanted to kind of have that safety net. So I've been using masking fluid a lot whenever I do watercolors paintings, which I only started using maybe the last year or so. And I have to say that you have to be a little bit careful with it if you put it on too thick, and if you don't use the right paper, it will tear up your paper. So what I found out is I try to put a very thin layer. Less is more with masking fluid. You don't need to cover a lot, you just need to have a little bit of it on there for it to cover the area. And then also using a heavier, thicker watercolor paper will keep itself a lot better together when removing it, and then just softer and just calmly we'll get the job done when removing the masking fluid and start trying to be fast and get it all out. So alright, so let me know what you guys think of this painting. I do have other pictures from when I took this one that I might try to do. I think it might be a little cool to kind of do a number of self-portraits with different mediums, and then have that be the variation where it's obviously different poses, similar color tones, but done in different mediums. I think might be cool. So I think the next one I might try to do will be acrylic. So yeah, so the last step right now, it's going to be to add my signature at the bottom right. I thought about maybe adding a background to it, but I chose not to. I kind of wanted to leave the bottom half kind of unfinished or a raw edge, just because that's where the photograph ended, and I didn't want to try to think of making up what the rest of the body would look like. So I figured adding a background will just look a little unbalanced with the raw edge at the bottom. So here's a little bit of a close-up. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye. Thanks for watching my video. Make sure to like it, leave a comment below, and for more art related videos, go to my channel and subscribe.